bottom left-hand side, those skinny green tubes growing out of the water, that stuff's called pencil grass. In a survival situation, you can eat the roots off the pencil grass to procure purified water. Otherwise, you would not want to drink that canal water boiling at first. Many different kinds of animals live in the water, put out a lot of waste. Bubba's a 35-year-old male, 10 feet long. Now these trees that are growing in the water out here, they're called pond apple trees. They produce a bright green fruit that are edible, but they're kind of bitter and they're natural laxatives, so we don't eat those things. If you let them fall in the water, they'll get eaten by turtles, catfish, and sometimes even alligators. Another cool thing about the trees, you'll notice a bunch of smaller plants growing off their branches. Those are called red bromeliads. Red bromeliads are native air plants of the Florida Everglades. They're a non-parasitic plants that don't cause any harm or damage to the trees they grow. They feed solely off moisture and nutrients in the air. One of my favorite plants out here in the Florida Everglades, on the left-hand side, the big bush that's sticking out, that's called cocoa plum. Cocoa plum grow these miniature plums. They're about the size of grapes. They have fleshy white centers. They're mildly sweet, so I do eat those every chance I get. They're pretty good. Over on the right-hand side, that taller grass that surrounds the pond apple tree, that's sawgrass. Sawgrass feels exactly like it sounds. It has 3 serrated edges that are just like the blades of a hacksaw. Very sharp stuff. If you were to reach out there and grab a handful, it would slice your hands wide open. I've seen that happen a million times out here, but if it brushes up on you, don't grab it and it won't cut you. At this time, we're going to get on that trail and go a little bit faster. Go ahead and put your earplugs in. Please secure the plastic wrapper so you can pocket or bag. Don't throw them on the floor. the park is 1.5 million acres of protected land. Basically everything south of the road you guys drove in on, so you hit the southern tip of Florida. That's all national park. But it's just a park. The entire system of the Everglades combined from where they begin, south of Orlando, all the way down to the bottom, solid limestone rock underneath that. With a good pair of boots on, you could walk around all day long. As long as the alligators and snakes don't get a hold of it. So the water's constantly flowing at half a mile a day, making the Everglades a big river, not a swamp. And it continues flowing south in front of us for 36 miles. It's all going to spill out to the Florida Bay. If you went down there, you'd see alligators, crocodiles, and manatees in the water. That's the only place in the entire world where all three animals live together. And the only other place we can find alligators at besides America is in China. We only have 2 species of alligators on Earth. Other than that, everybody else has crocodiles, caimans, and out, put them in your pocket. We're going to go slow for the rest of the way. Down this canal, we'll continue to look for wildlife. You want to check those lily pads, look down into the water, and check up on the sides by the sawgrass.
Il va doucement.
Okay, look, straight back there, just behind that sawgrass, you can see the back. I'll turn around, give me a second here. Turn this around. Alligator's a 27-year-old female named Lily, and she's 7 feet long. I know that one's Lily because alligators are extremely territorial. They spend their entire lives in the same areas. So Lily takes up over 200 yards of territory in this canal. We're in mating season right now. They can be. They're dangerous if provoked. If you leave them alone, they're going to leave you alone. They got no interest in messing with us whatsoever.
Là derrière. Là, juste derrière l'arbre. Il y a de la voie. Là, juste tout droit.
We have a saying out here in the Everglades, just because you can't see the wildlife,
attends, il faut qu'il avance encore un petit peu. Là.
Oh,
si, lève-toi, là. Tu vois, Tom?
Il n'y a rien.
Si, derrière le truc. T'as l'arbre et puis t'as comme un bouquet. Si, je la vois, moi.
Just a bit.
Si, là, on la voit comme ça.
On voit rien.
Là, derrière.
Because if it did, I wouldn't have a job.
Oh, well,
Mais toi, debout.
fly through here anyway.
Toi, debout, il est là derrière. Regarde. Tu vois dans les feuilles. Tu vois dans les feuilles, Tom, là. Au milieu des feuilles, derrière les
Out
feuilles.
there, I'm sure it scares everything, but here
Si,
we're
on
on
voit.
idols.
Là, on voit rien, il n'y a rien.
Oh, arrêtez de râler,
In
asseyez-vous.
the state of Florida, alligators are highly protected. It's against the law to feed them, touch them, or harass them. Alrighty, folks, we're gonna push on. Let's see what else we can find. Later, alligator. Back in the 90s when I was a kid, we started to catch pythons out here. We think that a bunch of pet owners told the people who own pythons began releasing their pets after they got too much in their enclosures. Pythons quickly found their way around the Florida Everglades, and they're thriving out here today. There's a lot of them, eating up all the wildlife. By the year 2010, Everglades National Park noticed over 90% of the small mammals were gone inside the park because the pythons came. Yep, he's still there up ahead on the left-hand side. Big alligator, Bubba, 35-year-old man.
Oh oui, il est beau celui-là. Tu le vois celui-là?
We named Bubba after the man that he attacked. Bubba loved NASCAR and beer, and now he's not here. Take a second to make sure you guys have everything you got on board with. Check your areas real quick. Make sure you drop any garbage, your cell phones, cameras, pocketbooks, husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, or little kids. Please don't leave anything on my boat. We don't have a lost and found here at Gator Park, so if you lose anything of value, locate that on eBay in 35 to 45 minutes.
And environmental resources over that time. There was originally a couple indigenous groups in the area called the Calusa and Tequesta that may have helped shape some of the major waterways running through the Everglades via their trade and foraging routes. Up until about the 1500s, when Spanish contact ultimately caused those peoples to die out. And then from the beginning of the 1800s to the mid-1800s, the Seminole and the Miccosukee, who came down into Florida from Georgia, they have also made the Everglades their new homeland. And most of the major changes, however, that have been shaping this ecosystem have been happening over the past 100 years or so. From the 1920s onward, when this area started being more heavily built up and a lot more construction and major alterations of the water flow were taking place, it was the Florida Federation of Women's Clubs that in 1916 set aside this parcel where we are now as Florida's first state park, as Royal Palm State Park. And then later on, when the national park was established in 1947, this area here would be added onto the national park as a core area, which it remains to this day. And it still bears the name Royal Palm. And this area is an artificial wetland, so it's not a natural wetland as it once was. A lot of land was removed from this area. Kind of as a borrow pit, the land was used to build up and elevate berms with the roadways and nearby homestead. But over time, the water and the native plants have come back, they've filled in, the wildlife have followed, and so this is now a very good copy of what a natural slough would look like. Sloughs are those areas of deeper water and they provide a refuge for a lot of aquatic life, such as fish. And so a lot of fish will often go to the deeper areas of sloughs to escape predators, as well as maybe to escape cold. We do occasionally get the cold spell around here that maybe dips at or below the 40s. A lot is holding out their wings to dry because they're not waterproof. You know how when you get out of a swimming pool and when you're all wet, you kind of have to wrap a towel around yourself because you get really cold? These birds have pretty much the same problem. So the water is drawing heat away from their bodies and they risk getting hypothermia. So they have to pull out their wings to dry every time they go for a swim. Alligator in the process of raising her eggs during the wet season when she builds her nest, a mound full of decaying plant material to keep her eggs dry and above the water. That mound is also a key place for other animals.
Do they bite?
Only if you get too close. The bite force is about 1,000 pounds per square inch, but they will not bother you if you don't bother them. So wherever possible, we want to keep a minimum safe distance of 15 feet. They do not naturally see us as prey. They only become a problem once they're hand-fed. Fun fact, their brain is about the size of a walnut. So this is an animal that operates basically on pure instinct, and once they've been acclimated and become dependent on people for food, that is when they become aggressive, and that is when people can get seriously hurt. That is where tragedies can happen. But left to their own, to find their own food in the wild, they will leave us alone. They would rather not have anything to do with us. We'll easily take a baby gator, pythons, larger territorial adult male alligators. Will also prey on baby alligators until they reach about 4 feet. Yeah, that is a very big one. That's probably a male, if I had to guess, based on the size alone. Males tend to be a few feet larger than females, but they're...
I just saw something out of the corner of my eye move and I went, oh.
So where do you usually see green? On a tree. It's in an area that's very prone to hurricanes during the summer, and so if a really bad storm comes along, rips off all the branches where the leaves are, with the chlorophyll that it needs to do photosynthesis and make food for the plant. Surprise! This tree has a reserve, emergency backup reserve of chlorophyll built into the bark. And so this tree is able to conduct. They're well camouflaged, either with the sky above or the plants below these herons. And so they'll just sit and wait, sometimes for hours on end, perfectly still, until a fish swims close enough by. Silvery blue body with a black and white striped crown and a little black crest hanging out the back. And so they're one of our sit and wait predators. So among our wading birds, they're our largest wading bird, about 4 feet tall. Because there's no soil, they're often drawing whatever nutrients they can out of the water as it comes south. And the rock itself is limestone, and that limestone is a very porous, hole-filled rock, almost like a sponge. And so the limestone is also soaking up a lot of things that are dissolved in the water.